Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Marriage Podcast, where we talk about healthy relationships from a Muslim lens. I'm Zahra Hassan.
And I'm AJ, and we've been married for 2.5 years.
And let's get started.
Let's get started.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about red flags, but specifically red flags for people who are manipulators. Yes, this is an important population of people that you want to be able to recognize and avoid quickly.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about how to do that in some detail. But before we get started, if you find the information that we're talking about useful or In Shaa Allah entertaining, please feel free to subscribe or comment down below, or reach out to us at our email at support@zahrahassancoaching.com.
And give a like. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right. So let's get started. When you were going through your talking stage,
I was manipulative, yeah.
a little bit, yeah.
Oh, I was so manipulative. Oh, I manipulated the heck out of her.
Okay, but you've reformed your ways.
Yeah, of course, because I got married to you. That's it. No more manipulation.
At the beginning and end.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. But before we get started with the more technical definitions, just out of curiosity, because we're not really sure, as a woman, we're not really sure what's going on the other side.
Yeah.
But we've discussed this before. Are there red flags that you guys are looking, what are you looking to avoid? What are the red flags on your ends?
Oh, that's a good question. I never actually thought about it. Red flags on our ends, huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Are you talking about superficial, or are you talking about
in general? Because what I've noticed from the men's end is that men are looking to avoid women who are quote unquote crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So it's women who are difficult for them to handle. So how, as a man, how would you recognize that? How would you start to be able to identify, oh, this is someone I should sidestep?
Good question. Honestly, it's inherent.
It's instinctive.
It's instinctive, yeah.
Have you ever come across somebody like that?
I'm sure I have. I'm positive I have. One red flag that I can think of is somebody that is only interested in saying, hey, let's go out on a date to a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
But is not interested in talking at a park or face to face without having to buy something. You know?
After you've met her family and etc.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm not talking about my experience, right? I'm talking about the type of person that wouldn't be interested in just sitting down and talking as part of a date, but would rather want there to be a monetary aspect to it, right? So hey, why don't you take me out, buy me some food, or why don't you take me shopping for a date or something? It feels like that they're trying to exploit you financially instead of actually trying to get to know you.
That's very interesting, and honestly, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I would 100% agree with that. That's somebody who's really probably not interested in you as an individual, but in what you offer them. Yeah. So on the other side of the coin, from the women's point of view, and definitely everything I'm saying today applies to both men and women, right? Because people are manipulators on both genders. Anyone can be a manipulator.
Yeah.
Anyone from any background, any gender, any human being.
Yeah.
Right. And when I say manipulator, I'm talking about somebody who, for one reason or another, is coercive, who has some sort of agenda when they deal with you. Okay. There's multiple different agendas. The type of manipulator we're going to focus on today are those who are personality disordered, right? So there's a number of personality disorders that can fit in this category, but it really doesn't serve our purposes to differentiate between one and the other. So we'll just say personality disorder, right? And people who are personality disordered, they manipulate for their emotional gain. Does that make sense? Like they feel better when you don't.
That's deep.
Yeah, when you don't. Like if you are down in life, then somehow that makes them feel better.
Seesaw.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying really hard to stay away from a lot of terms that have been overused in pop culture, so that they've pretty much lost all meaning, right?
Seesaw.
Yeah. Seesaws?
Is that a term that's overused?
No, not maybe, but just not in this context.
Seesaw.
Okay, so it's just but I'm trying really hard to stay away from those terms. Hopefully people can understand what it is that I'm saying.
Yeah.
And why it's important to talk about this is women generally are physically more vulnerable. And clients who come to me who are married and are sometimes in real trouble and find out that they're married to somebody like this, situations can get very dangerous. Very dangerous. I'm not saying that every single person with a personality disorder is dangerous, but I'm saying that people who are dangerous often have these personality disorders. So it's if you can sidestep someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart, it's really important to know how to recognize and how to do that. So with that preamble, let's get started. Right.
Let's get started.
Okay. For whenever you open up a textbook, a psychiatry textbook, and you flip to the section of personality disorders, particularly cluster B, they'll tell you that recognizing the difference between one or another is difficult. It's very subjective. There's no real blood test that can tell somebody that you are, narcissistic or antisocial personality disorder or histrionic or whatever it may be. There's no imaging test. There's no X-ray. There's no MRI. The best indicator, and a lot of books will tell you this, is how you feel around that person. So if you are with somebody or are in contact with someone, and this can be true over text, right? And being around this person is making you feel a little bit unbalanced. Yeah, a little bit on your back foot. Is that an expression that people use?
Yeah.
On the back foot.
Yeah.
That's a very big clue and an indicator that you might be with someone who's attempting to manipulate you, distort your reality.
Yeah.
The feeling, or like when I'm explaining to clients, when you first meet somebody, you say, Salam alaikum, you meet them on a dating app, for example.
Yeah.
And you first interact with them. You can know very early, very, very early, that this is who you're dealing with, man or woman.
Yeah.
And it feels as if someone comes to your door, knocks on your door, total stranger, knocks, ding dong, they knock on the door opens, and you say hi, and they say hi, and instead of having a conversation with you at the doorstep, they walk right past you into your house.
Oh, they're not even like a vampire or anything? They just walk right through. No invitation or anything like that. They just walk right through.
Yes. It's like that feeling of invasiveness.
Yeah.
That your social protocols are not being respected. That your borders, your boundaries are not being respected. That feeling of being invaded upon.
Yeah.
Right? So emotionally, that's what it feels like from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you have a background where you grew up with somebody who had even a low-level degree of dealing with you in this way, and this is subconsciously familiar to you, when you meet somebody who's doing this, it's weirdly going to feel familiar.
Yeah.
And therefore good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is where problems happen.
I'll tell you what, another way to find out if somebody does have a personality disorder or is narcissistic is if they have a keen and intense interest in business cards.
In business cards?
Business cards.
Okay. What are the...
We'll move on.
We'll move on?
Next point.
Okay. All right. Inshallah, you'll explain that. Yeah?
Eventually.
Eventually. Okay. But
It's from American Psycho.
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There is that scene. Okay, very good.
Subtle off-white coloring.
Yeah, that's actually a very good example. A very intense example, but a very good example. But yes, so if you have a history of being raised by someone, and this is actually fairly common, like not everybody, personality disorders are not an all or none event, right? They can exist on a spectrum. So people can have some traits of a personality disorder, without being an actual without being all the way on the malignant end, on the extreme end, right?
Yeah.
So many people are actually being raised by family members who have these personality disorders.
Yeah.
And when they go out into the world, they become more vulnerable to being attracted to someone who has the same dynamic with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, in a way,
Yeah.
you and I, we could potentially know of many women that have personality disorders, and many men. Many men
Yes.
wish death on me.
Okay. All right. That's beautiful. So that's how you recognize them in the very beginning. Just that feeling of being evaded upon, right? Just to give you another dimension, another example, because this is the most important moment. Like, because if you carry on a relationship with a person like this and you get married to them, and you stay with them for years, it is these initial moments that you're going to remember as the moments where your internal radar should have been up.
Yeah.
Right? So whenever you speak to a client who has gone through this, and she's been married to somebody for 10 years and has endured God knows what, and you ask her, can you tell me about when you first met? She will describe what it is I'm describing now.
Yeah.
So that's why we're spending so much time on what it feels like in the beginning. Okay, so it's that feeling of being invaded upon. To clarify that in one more dimension, I remember one time I was in a forum, right, where it was a social media platform, but it was a little bit more formal, and everybody on the forum was talking about personality disorders, right?
Yeah.
And there were people, mental health professionals, that were there, and they were sharing their experiences. And one person, he raised his hand, and he said that he was diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. He says, I've been diagnosed with NPD and ASD, antisocial personality disorder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and we thought this was very interesting, right? Because I've never dealt with somebody who had the diagnoses. So we asked him some questions, right? And one of the questions somebody asked him is, like, how do you operate? Like, how do you choose who it is that you're going to go for? And he said, it's very, very simple. It's very simple. He said, I can hear it in the way that you speak, right? In the way that you speak, the language that you choose. And the way that you speak is like a sieve. Like, that's the word that he used. Like, so instead of saying things like, I know this to be true, you'll say something like, I think. Like, you're very apologetic in your tone, and you leave space for other people to
enter into the understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So he says there's a lot of that going on. He said it's to the point where I can almost smell it on you. And this is an online forum. There was nothing to actually smell. And I remember he pointed out me and another woman. And he said, so Zahra and this other woman, I don't want to say her name. He said, the two of you would be my targets. He said, the two of you would be my targets. I can hear from your tone that there's space for me to be there. Right? So, like, it's important to really understand that I'm not saying that everybody is like this, but it's important to know that there are people that are like this. Sometimes they go and they get help, sometimes they get treatment, but having the information, especially when you're out there and you're meeting strangers, of being able to recognize people who are this far on the spectrum is very important. So how does the relationship go when you meet someone like this? Baby, I'm sorry. A lot of this is just going to be me talking.
Oh,
yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
Can we circle back to the that manipulation thing real quick?
Which one?
Where do you remember how when we first met, I was very manipulative to you?
Yeah.
Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. And it got much better when we got married. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm not manipulative at all, right? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You're manipulating my responses?
Yeah.
I get you.
But I actually wasn't, when we were first in the talking stage, alhamdulillah, I don't think I was manipulative to you.
No, you weren't. No, you were not. Alhamdulillah. So a person you've met somebody, okay, and they are in this category of person. Let's talk about how a relationship will go with them. There are generally 4 stages in those relationships, right? So a lot of you have heard of these terms, but as a review, the first stage is love bombing. The second stage is devaluing. Third is discard.
Okay.
And fourth is hoovering. So let's talk about how love bombing will go, right? So if you follow me on Instagram, at Zahra Hassan Coaching, I talk about this a lot because it's extremely vital that you understand the difference between love bombing and genuine interest. I remember this was a question I kept having with myself when I first met you, because of the way that you were showing up with the consistency and beautiful things that you were writing for me. I had this question in my head: is this genuine interest or is it love bombing? And the way that you tell the difference, right, is time. Because when somebody is love bombing, it's an act. It's not sincere. It feels unnatural to them. That's not who they genuinely are. They're trying to do something that does not fall in line, that is not in alignment with them. Yeah. Therefore, it's not sustainable.
Not at all.
It'll show up very intensely, and then will burn out quickly. Yeah. So the most that they can maintain it is about 3 months. This is why I tell my clients, if you're in a talking stage with somebody who's a complete stranger, try to wait at least 3 months to see if the person that they portrayed themselves to be is still there. Yeah. There is still that consistency. So that's the love bombing. Whereas with genuine interest, sometimes, just like you did, they'll find out what your love language is, and you found out mine was words of affirmation. Yeah. And they'll write you things, they'll write poetry, they'll do the things. But it will be more sustainable. That consistency will still be there. Even after the 3 months are finished. And also the intensity will be much lower. It will be like a low flame, right? So that's the difference between the two, right? The intention of love bombing, we've already suggested what that is to make you emotionally attached as quickly as possible. Yeah. So how will it actually manifest? When you first meet somebody, they will ask you a lot of questions about you, right? So not so much about where you work, but do you like where you work? You're going to have this powerful sensation of being seen, like being very intensely seen. Like somebody. This
is part of the love bombing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's like a magnifying. It's like you're being interviewed by a fan. Yeah. Right? Like it's just really appreciated for who you are, highly valued. Right?
Is part of love bombing pointing out the things that are going wrong with the other person's life?
In which way?
in a sense of like trying to get them to feel attached to you, being like, how are you liking work? You seem stressed.
Later on. Later on. But in the first phase, it'll be making you feel seen by asking you a whole bunch of questions. And part of the second reason why they're asking you those questions is they're also gathering intel on you, because that information is going to eventually be used against you. But in the beginning, it's going to be used to make you attached more and more. So if they find out your love language is gifts, guess what?
They start giving you gifts.
Yeah, you're have flowers and things show up at your work. They'll always have something in hand, etc. They'll ask you a lot about your previous relationships. And they'll be like, oh man, that person was terrible. I don't know why he would treat someone as wonderful as you like that. He didn't know what he had. And of course, there will be all of the compliments, like the overboard compliments of, there's nobody like you. There's no one as smart as you. I've never felt like this way before. That's very common. And big declarations of love, right? So usually within the first couple of weeks. Right, really, really big declarations of feeling. So that's what the initial part of the love bombing phase is. Another dimension to that is that they will overshare. They will overshare about themselves. Because what they want to do is they want you to feel sorry for them. And like emotionally feel guilty. They're starting to train you to feel guilty for putting up any boundaries with them.
They're starting to take you hostage.
A little bit, right? Emotionally hostage. But it's like, because, for example, you'll meet somebody and within the first couple of days, they'll tell you about their traumatic childhoods. Right? They'll say, this is what happened to me when I was a childhood. This is the way I was treated by my mother. I lost my father. It was really hard for me, etc., etc. And this is someone you just met. And another thing they might tell you is about traumatic relationships, particularly like so-and-so cheated on me, or so-and-so was so mean to me. They'll say that a lot. She was so mean to me. She made me feel little. Subconsciously is what they're teaching you how to treat them, so that later on, if you try to put up a boundary, you'll feel guilty. You'll be like, oh, I don't want to be like his ex who treated him this way, or I don't want to be like his parents who treated him that way. And I can recognize that from clients who will come and tell me about horrific abuse, or even any kind of abuse, any degree of abuse. Any degree is unacceptable. And they'll excuse it by saying, but he had a difficult childhood, but he had a terrible marriage, or etc. Right? So they've been trained from the beginning to excuse. So in that very early love bombing stage, they will be trauma dumping.
He was an awful person, always the worst, always treated me awfully, never let me eat off the same table, and I always had to wait for him to finish eating food before I could eat the leftovers. However, he had a Netflix account. And that was enough.
And that was enough?
And that was enough.
Okay. All right, I haven't had that situation yet, and inshallah we never do. But it's, inshallah though, you get the idea that those are the two dimensions of the love bombing, where they make you feel very seen. And the second dimension is that they will overshare. That's the beginning. And that will go on for about 3 months, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit shorter, depending on how far up they are on the spectrum. Okay? After that stage is finished, then they will move into the So I'll notice a lot of the practicing Muslims by this point will be married. Right? So by the end so within the love bombing stage, they're married. So before they even get to the second stage, it'll be too late. Right? So that's why I focus so much on love bombing, because that's where so much of the information can be seen before people get married.
That's why that whole mahram, the wali,
yes,
that's there for that whole. They'll be the one to cut through that, be like, what's going on here? You guys are too lovey-dovey. No, 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 no. Bring it back. Bring it back. We need to keep this stable.
See, the thing about people who are personality disorder, particularly the ones who are more sophisticated, is that they bring a different version of themselves to each person. So sometimes even for a wali, it's difficult for them to see.
Yeah, I suppose, because the wali doesn't have to be right there at the table with them.
Yeah.
Right? The wali is just in the proximity, so they might be like the next table over.
Yeah, but another sign that you can use for yourself, especially for women, is that if the manipulator is the man and you are the woman, they won't want to talk to your male relatives. Or they'll talk negatively about them. They won't like them. With minimal information, they'll be like, you know what, your brother is this or your brother is that.
Well, I feel like that's...
I don't want to talk about it. Like, it'll be subtle at first, especially in the love bombing stage.
Sure.
Because they don't want to... They're still conning you, right?
Well, yeah.
But it'll be under the radar, but they will be avoiding. And when you move into the devaluing stage and they start isolating you from family members, the primary family members they're isolating you from are your male relatives. They just don't like other men. Yeah.
I feel like if anyone in the very beginning stages was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling like your brother, or I'm not really feeling your father, like, I'd be like, okay, cool, thanks, bye.
That's that, right?
I mean, like, look, you just showed me, right, in the first however long that we've known each other, that you don't like my family. So why would I choose to continue the relationship with you? You're just going to make it hard for me and my family, right?
Yes.
I need to find somebody that meshes.
Yes, I agree, but it'll be more subtle. Right? So, for example, when clients come and ask me, they won't see it, but I'll see it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not going to present as I don't like your brother, or I don't want to talk to your brother, I don't want to talk to your father. It's just they'll say, yeah, definitely, no, I should talk to your wali, but I have school. Right? Or they'll make excuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have exams, or I have
that was
school.
so shocking.
Yeah.
But I have school.
Yeah, I have an exam coming up. I have to go to work. I have these reasons why I can't meet up with them. Or they'll start saying things like, you know what, financially I'm not ready. I don't know what they're gonna say about me. They'll be pushback. There will be pushback. And the longer you are with them, especially if you get married to them, that pushback becomes a lot more obvious.
Yeah.
Right? So it's somebody who is not personality disordered. Even if they're insecure, they'll be, if they want to marry you, they're gonna meet with your weddings and there won't be much pushback. But if there's a lot of pushback, there's insecurity there. And one of the reasons for the insecurity, they might be personality disordered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is that. 3 months have passed by. Around that period of time. I've seen it sometimes go on as long as 6 months. Yeah. But we'll say 3 months is the average. And they move on to the devaluing stage. Now, this is where all that information they learned about you, where it comes into play.
Yeah.
So whatever your weaknesses are, they're going to remind you a lot.
Yeah.
They're going to find out what you're insecure. Say you're insecure about your appearance. Say you have a lot of acne. They'll be bringing that up a lot. If you're insecure about your weight, they'll bring that up a lot. About your job, about your family, about literally anything. That will be the focus of conversation. At the same time, if there's anything that you are proud of, right, anything that you celebrate, say you graduate from something, they will belittle that, right? They'll belittle that. If you love your job and you get a promotion, they'll be like, you know, you're not supposed to be working there anyway. Like that place isn't, you know, there's these other companies that do such a big deal and you've been working there for 10 years and you just got a promotion. Like whatever way that they can minimize your achievements and your accomplishments, that's part of the devaluing stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the point of this stage is to make you feel small. And not only small, but psychologically to start to break down the parts of your identity that are important to you, to sort of smooth away your identity.
Yeah.
So that your identity becomes whatever they want you to be, which is usually submissive to them.
Yeah.
And when I say submissive, I mean pathologically submissive.
Yeah.
Like, you depend on them to tell you what to feel, what to think, and what reality is.
Yeah.
This is the extreme version, right? But by being aware of the extreme version, that it exists and it's real, inshallah, you'll have some radar for even smaller versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, if you start your own business and you buy an office and you're moving in, and they're like, wow, an office, congratulations. This is very impressive. But you know, Bill Gates started Microsoft from his garage.
Yeah.
Why do you need a whole office?
Exactly. They'll find a way to be negative.
Yeah.
About anything that makes you happy, they'll be negative about it.
Yeah.
Anything that makes you insecure or second guess yourself, they'll amplify that. They'll agree with it and amplify it.
Yeah.
And then comes the third phase. So the devaluing phase happens for a number. It can happen for years. It can happen for however long they decide. But at some point, if they decide to move on from the relationship, right, without your permission, they will go into what is called the discard phase, and that's exactly what it sounds like. During this phase, they'll stop talking to you, even if you're married to them, right? They'll start distancing you, start stonewalling you. Silent treatment is very common, very, very common. And yeah, so that's how it will present. And then after the discard phase, where the two of you have decided to go your separate ways, or they've just disappeared, or they just suddenly tell you they want a divorce and divorce you, or if this was a prolonged talking stage and they just suddenly drop off the face of the earth, cancel the engagement, etc., just leave. They very rarely is a discard, a final discard on their end. What's much more common is they eventually come back. And when they come back, they want to restart the cycle. So they're not going to be able to just restart it first without bringing you in. So what's the final phase called is hoovering. Hoovering, right? And the way that they hoover you back in is that it will be a less intense love bombing. Because they're not going to have to go all... They already have so many strings already...
All those memories.
Exactly, that are attached. They don't have to put in so much effort. They can put in like 30-40% of the effort to bring you back into the fold, and then away you go. You can repeat the stages. And when you are, like, God forbid, with somebody like this, the reality that a lot of therapists and counselors will tell you is that the final discard has to come from you. Because if you let them, they'll just keep repeating that cycle. Right? Well, they'll devalue you, discard you, hoover. Devalue, discard, hoover, etc., etc. And the negative parts become longer and longer.
Yeah.
So these are the on-again, off-again relationships. So these are the clients who come to me and tell me, I've married and remarried the same person 2 times, 3 times, right? These are the abusive on-again, off-again relationships. And the reality is they're going to keep repeating it as long as you allow them to. So the final and true discard has to come from you. You have to
feel like
put that boundary up.
Isn't it? Wouldn't it get expensive for him?
Oftentimes it'll be a spiritual marriage. You mean the marriage and divorce? Yeah. Oftentimes it'll just be a spiritual marriage and not a legal marriage, and that gives them space to. You'll find that most of the time they're not adherent to the religion. Like sometimes there are what are called spiritual narcissists, right? I'm not saying that everybody's a spiritual narcissist. I'm just telling the audience about the different types of people that are out there, because I feel like a lot of people are naive, where they could be at all levels of outward practicing.
Yeah.
You know, all the way up to imam, etc., leader of a spiritual community. There are priests. You know, that's why you have a lot of cults. Their leaders are narcissists, right? Outwardly, they can be presenting as very, very religious.
Yeah.
But behind closed doors, these people are not very religious. They're not very practicing. So this person is going to be unlikely to be paying the haqq of the wives after they've divorced them.
Yeah.
So it's really not very expensive for them.
You brought up an idea that I just had. Spiritual narcissists.
Yeah.
Are there such things as elemental narcissists?
I haven't heard that, no. Is that from Avatar?
No. See, I feel like one type of elemental narcissist is a person that would constantly spit at you to devalue you. Like that's the water.
Okay, all right.
Another type of elemental narcissist is like a rapper, like a rap battle.
Spitfire.
He'll spit fire.
I get you.
Right. Now, I don't know the other elements. I'm going to have to work on that.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. They can throw mud, but there's probably a few puns left there.
Yeah.
But blow hot air. Okay, I'll stop now.
Hey,
there you go.
You got it.
Yeah.
They blow hot air.
Yeah, but
They'll sweep you off your feet.
okay. But the reality is that yes, they don't really adhere to the religion because they're not really treating their family members well, and somebody like that is usually not. Only God knows what they're doing, but they're usually not. They do what serves them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people who are on this extreme are a very small percentage of the population, right? Statistics vary, but I think a lot of books say 2% of the population will be malignant, narcissistic, or sometimes less numbers than that. So most of the people who are listening, even the ones who are married, it's not my place or anyone's place really to invalidate what they're experiencing. But we also have to be realistic with the idea that most of us are not dealing with or unlikely to be dealing with malignant narcissists. However, if a person is, God forbid, experiencing some kind of abuse, it really doesn't matter what the label of that abuse is. Or the underlying cause. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The pain feels the same. The outcome feels the same. If somebody is in a situation where they are experiencing abuse, first of all, my heart goes out to you. It's always heartbreaking. And the recommendation is always find help. Find help, whether from your family members, whether there are organizations. There's so many beautiful organizations that take care of particularly women and children, but also men.
Yes.
There's so many hotlines. It's all Googleable. I will share a few in the description. Inshallah. But literally, it depends on where you are. I would Google it and see what's there, inshallah, and find help. So that's for the people who are experiencing abuse. For everyone else who is in the talking stage, right, and who is meeting a complete stranger, inshallah, I hope it's a little bit clarified what it is that you're looking out for, because that's the intention of this podcast primarily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, is to have the right information so that when somebody appears in your inbox or on your father's couch, you'll be able to have an understanding that not everybody is good. Because I that was the hardest lesson for me that I learned, right? That as human beings, we tend to think that everyone thinks like you do. Like I thought that everyone thinks the same way that I do. Right. And it was a rude awakening. It was a rude awakening to find out that there are people out there who really feel better when I feel bad.
Yeah, they don't care about you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how to, inshallah, a good review of what those relationships look like and how to recognize them. Again, in the very beginning, it's how you feel around the people that will give you a heads up that might be what's going on. If you are in a talking stage with somebody, even if you have an inkling of a wisp, of a hint, of a mirage of something may be going on, my advice, right? The advice that I give to my blood sisters and my blood brothers, it'll be the same advice that I give to you. Don't find out the hard way. Trust your instinct. Don't judge the other person. You might be, in fact, you're most likely wrong, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't really matter. There are so many other women out there. There are so many other men out there who will be completely safe. That there is no reason for you to find out how safe this individual is or how dangerous they might be.
Yeah, particularly one of the early stages is like if they're not available when they say they're going to be.
Yes.
Usually it happens for the men. I don't know if it happens more so for the women.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't have the female perspective on that, right?
Yeah.
But the male perspective is sometimes the person would be like, yeah, no, let's chat on this day. You know, I'm free this day.
Yeah.
And then that day rolls around and they're like, oh, sorry, something came up. I'm busy. How about a couple hours later I call you, right? And then a couple hours later they're like, sorry, something came up. Or they just don't say that, right? And the next day, you're like, hey, what's up? I thought we were, and they're like, oh, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
How about tomorrow? Right? And then it just goes back and forth like that.
Yeah.
Eventually you're like, okay, well, nobody is busy to the point where 4 days in a row they don't have enough time to talk to you. Could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes, could be 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Nobody has that much unless they're like a really impressive entrepreneur.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. We definitely, yes. We also experienced that. That would be the understatement of the century. But it tends to be that the reasons why people do that is usually more benign, right? That somebody who, for whatever reason, wants to benefit from your companionship without you expecting anything from them in return. Maybe they're talking to a number of people and you're lower down on their list, right? It could be
that feels pretty malignant to me.
It doesn't feel good, right? But it's less likely, like because the people who are,
they're not actively trying to harm you.
Yes, because
that's what you're saying.
Yes, because people who are personality disordered, they will be love bombing you.
Yeah.
And so on the other extreme, they're calling you 24/7. Right? The issue is that you feel overwhelmed by the attention that they're giving you. So these are the people who are texting you, or calling you, or whatever way you've given to reach out to them.
Yeah.
That's what that looks like. It's the other extreme. Whereas the people who are intermittently available, there's a number of reasons why they're doing that. The common theme, though, is that they don't want you to expect anything from them. They're trying to manage your expectations.
Yeah.
They're indirectly telling you, hey, like it's like if we have a business and we're trying to hire somebody for the business, and they show up some days and don't show up others. They're telling us, I don't want to be here full time.
Yeah.
I want to run my own hours. Don't expect anything.
It is possible that a person that's love bombing you doesn't have bad intentions. They're just like, you're the first person that said, yeah, I like you, to them.
Yeah.
And they're just super interested and they're expressing that too hard.
Yeah, it could be. But a person who's doing that will persist after 3 months. Because if the interest is genuine, right? So there are some people who have genuine interest and just really like your company and don't know how to manage that. It will feel overwhelming to you, especially if you yourself are a little bit avoidant. that much attention will feel overwhelming. It will feel like love bombing.
Yeah.
So that's why I began by saying it's the amount of time that'll let you know. I remember on my TikTok, I actually made a short video, like 4 minutes, where I drew out in a graph the difference between love bombing and genuine interest, because understanding the difference between the two is very important. Because especially for Muslims, because we tend to get married within the love bombing period. So I highly recommend that TikTok is Zahra Hassan Coaching, right? I highly recommend you go watch that video. But to summarize it, it's time. So if that person who's very interested, like, is just really intensely infatuated with you and wants to actually pursue you for marriage, that person's not going to shy away from talking to your parents. He's going to be suggesting it. He's going to be like, when can I talk to your family, etc. They will oh, I almost forgot. Thank you for reminding me. So we've talked about how the relationship will go with them. Now let's talk about the individuals themselves who are personality disordered. I remembered I asked quite a few marriage counselors, certified marriage counselors and therapists, right? Is there a way that I can is there something that's common to people who are, for example, narcissistic, that I can be able to recognize them? And all of them would give me the same answer. They said they will always have difficulty with apologizing. So they won't be able to apologize. They can't accept any accountability. So let's think of example by a certain former U.S. president who's about to be a certain former. I think people understand who it is that we're talking about, right? Getting, even when this person is held to account by the court system, he still has difficulty accepting accountability for anything that's happened. So whenever you're trying to conceptualize what that will look like, think of him, right? So say you're out with or you're texting somebody, right? And you're in a talking stage with them, and they told you that they would call you at a certain time, and that time has come and gone, and they didn't call you, and it's like the next day, and you say, hey, what happened yesterday? You said you were going to call yesterday. I was waiting for you. My family was waiting for you, etc. They won't be able to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I missed it. They will instead say, what are you talking about? We didn't agree for that day. Or even if you're able to show them the text message where you had agreed for on that day, they will minimize, they will deflect, they will do literally anything except saying, I'm sorry, I forgot about it. I forgot that I was supposed to call you, and I apologize for that. So people who have personality disorder, particularly narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial, etc., they cannot accept accountability. The second thing that they all have in common is they cannot respect boundaries. If you put up a boundary, they will cross it. It doesn't matter how big or how small the boundary it is, they will immediately test it. They cannot help it. So one thing that I used to do for myself when I was in the talking stage is I would put up a boundary that I can't talk on the phone after 8 o'clock. Right? I have to go to work. That's too late for me, whatever it is. I'm not going to talk on the phone. I promise you, something like 90% of the men would call me at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever it is. They can't help it. They immediately just pass that boundary. And whenever somebody would pass that boundary, it doesn't mean that they're narcissistic, but it does mean that there's enough of a chance that they're narcissistic that I don't want to risk it. That would be the end of that. I would just walk away from that situation. That's enough of an indication. But you used to respect that. Like if I gave you a time of when I would be available, you would be there at that time, or you would tell me, I'm not going to be able to make that time, right? So that was a indicator for me that you were somebody who was likely not personality disordered. So the two things that all personality disorder people have in common is, number one, they cannot accept accountability. They won't apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to watch for that, any opportunity that presents itself. And number two, they cannot respect boundaries.
Mm.
So you can put up little boundaries and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the very least, if I do have a personality disorder, it's not one that would affect that.
No. No, tabarakallah. Like, it's, I tell my clients all the time, like, subhanAllah, like, crazy is a strong term, but I would say that if there was somebody, like, I'm the more unstable one in our relationship.
Mm.
You're the more stable person.
Well, that's because you're easy to push over. That doesn't prove anything.
All right. There you go. But it's, so I tell my clients, find somebody who is more stable than you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a good recipe for a successful marriage, In Shaa Allah. So that's the I think those are the important things that I wanted to go over for how to recognize that you might be in a relationship or a talking stage or marriage with somebody who is in the personality disorder. So the question is, how do you walk away?
One foot in front of the other.
Yeah. You would be surprised. People have real difficulty walking away. Like, if we go to the extreme end
Mm-hmm.
of these relationships, the extreme end of women who are, or somebody who is married to somebody like this and is in an abusive relationship, the statistics say something like it takes 7 times before they're able to walk away for good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they keep going back into the cycle about 7 times before they walk away for good.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. It really is like that.
It's different if you're married because you should realistically follow the steps outlined
In
for like intervention before divorce.
Even before, like, when in the beginning, the people who I was coaching were not Muslim.
Yeah.
Right? So they were non-Muslim people. So they were not married oftentimes. It was just long-term girlfriend, boyfriend situations. Even when they didn't have children, even when there were low levels of things that were keeping them together,
Yeah.
it still looked the same. Right? You still see people who are having real difficulty walking away. So it's still presented the same way. So if you're in a talking stage, this advice is probably more useful for people who are in the talking stage. You just do what I recommended in many videos so far. You just write 1 or 2 sentences. Don't forget, you don't actually owe anyone anything.
No, you don't.
No, especially if you've only been talking for a few months, right? This is essentially a stranger to you. If this is someone who's like a relative, a family relative, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more complicated.
Like
But
a cousin.
yeah, if this is because that might start to create problems between the two of your families, right? It's a little bit more complicated. But if it's someone that's random that you met on the internet,
Yeah.
you just tell them straight up, Assalamu alaikum, I hope you're doing well. It's been really nice getting to know you, but unfortunately, I don't think we're compatible. I wish you all the best, and wa alaikum assalam. You just well, that's it.
Yeah.
And
Theoretically, if it is a cousin, it should also be that simple.
Yeah, but you might, because that cousin has parents, and those parents have a relationship with your parents, right?
You just say, "Hey, your daughter sucks."
No. No, if it's family members, like, what I would recommend is that you go through family members, right? You go to your parents and you tell them, Hoya or Mom, I don't want to continue with this. Right? I don't want this to continue anymore.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Right? Or they'll tell you, okay, that's fine. Then they'll tell you how to proceed. Because when it comes to culture, I know definitely for me, I'm not, like, my education in Daqan or culture is very minimal and abysmally small. I don't know how things actually work in Somali culture. So whenever it's it comes back to cultural things, I just go back to my mom and I say, how should we proceed?
Yeah.
Yeah. And moms will tell you, right? So in order not to create issues between families, like, do it that way. But if it's a random stranger on the internet, you need to do it this way. Either way, in both cases, whether it's through family or not, what did we say? Is that they won't be able to discard you. Mm-hmm. They will keep coming back. So in order to prevent that, and a lot of people have difficulty with this, but I'm telling you, like, to this point, I've coached probably over 1,000 people, right? Yeah, well over 1,000 people by now. I've seen this pattern so often. Just save yourself a lot of trouble and just block them. Block them. Not because, like, more so to help you in your grieving process, mm-hmm. but also to prevent any avenues for hoovering, because it can happen, and it does happen. Yeah. Yeah, and if there is even any, like, if they have your fax number, mm-hmm. you're going to start receiving faxes. Yeah. Like, they'll find a way to get back in. So you try to think of every single way. If you leave one app open, that's the app that they'll try to come back over and over again. Yeah. So I highly recommend you block them. Also carry coins with you. The coins? Yeah, of course. What are the coins for? Well, if they're trying to hoover, okay, you just toss the coins. It'll get jammed. It'll be a deterrent. Yeah. All right. Just toss the coins at their face. Be like, I don't care for you. Okay. You may leave now. Yeah. Go. Just threaten them with it. Be like, hey. Oh, the threat's not going to work. Mm-hmm. Right? Because they're narcissists. Okay. The threat's not going to work. Okay. You got to hit them with the coins. Okay. No violence. And it's not violent. Okay. It's a gentle smack in the face. All right. There's no such thing. No violence. No smacking. Okay. No smacking. Thank you. But inshallah, was that clear? Like, did it make sense? It did, yeah. Yeah. I know it's like a little bit of a heavy topic, but it's heartbreaking every single time I see it. It's important information, you have to be aware that's what's going on out there. Let us know in the comments if you have dealt with anybody like this, or if we have missed any of the signs, mm-hmm. right? If we've missed any of the signs or characteristics that you've seen or come across, mm-hmm. let us know in the comments as well. Did you want to add anything? Well, in the next episode, right? Yeah. This episode we talked about red flags. Yeah. The next episode we're gonna have to do something with like NASCAR. Okay. Or something like that. Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go. Checkered flags. Okay. Finish line. There you go. Okay. That's there you go. Actually, in the next episode, mm-hmm. what we will be talking about, In Shaa Allah, is how to let go. Right? So when somebody goes through divorce, mm-hmm. or even just a prolonged talking stage, engagement, and you now have to break up, like how to heal through that and how to let go. And because letting go is a very important life skill. It doesn't come easy, but once you've mastered it, it makes life a lot less painful. Yeah. So we're going to talk about how to do that in some detail next time, inshallah. Inshallah. Once you figured out how to let it go, yeah, you can finally move on from your life. Yeah. You're not frozen in place anymore. Okay, knew what's coming. Okay, Alta. I think that's everything. So I want to say, as always, Jazaa K'Allah Khayr for listening. Actually, before we go, I know I've mentioned it before. For women who are like myself, I know this is true for a lot of my clients as well. As Muslim women, we don't really get a chance to interact with men. And also for men, you don't really get a chance to interact with women. But what that means is that when you go out into the world tonight, you have to try to meet someone and find a husband. We have no idea what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have created a 1-hour masterclass specifically for Muslim women called the beginner's guideline to how men think. So to give you some kind of baseline information so that when somebody comes into your inbox, you will have the tools you need to be able to evaluate them and understand what this man's intention is with you, right? If this is somebody who you should move forward with or you shouldn't. Because the fastest way to get to a spouse is to spend as little time as possible with everyone else.
True.
Yes, In Shaa Allah. So if anyone, if you're interested in that, the masterclass will be delivered online on July the 27th. We have opened a waitlist, right? That waitlist will end on July the 15th. If you add your name to the waitlist before that time, you will have 10% off. So feel free to add your name, inshallah, if you're interested. There will be a link also in the description below.
And for the men that will not be attending the masterclass, I'm going to give you my masterclass right now. Okay. The best way to find a spouse is, as my wife said, go through the woman as fast as possible. Now, I call this the shotgun method.
Okay.
You just love bomb everyone. Just love bomb everyone. And eventually, somebody's not going to get creeped out.
That's how you find it.
That's the keeper.
That's the keeper.
That's the one.
Is that? I think that's literally how it worked for us. I think it's literally what happened.
You don't know me.
No.
You don't know me.
No, I do not. No, but yes, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
So just
you got to be sincere. Don't love bomb everyone.
Right?
Yeah, just be yourself.
Yeah. Being yourself is key. That's how people recognize you.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is everything. So Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. Thank you so much for listening. And inshallah, we will see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.